Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. My name is Amir, doing another post-game show. The Miami Heat just defeated the Washington Wizards 118-98 in Mexico City. We're back. The Miami Heat are going to win a championship. Bam Adebayo is officially the best two-way player in the NBA once again. So big night for the Miami Heat. We did what we did, which is beat mediocre teams. So I'm happy we actually dominated a mediocre team for the first time this season. It was an easy game. The Miami Heat were never behind at one point in this game. So a nice and easy game, which I actually enjoy. When it comes to my team, Adel, I enjoy watching blowouts. I want my team to beat every team by 50. If it's a close game, I want it to be another team. I don't want it to be the Miami Heat because they're torture. But anyway, I have Digital Adel joining me for this post-game show. You can find Digital Adel at Hoops Profile as well as the 5 Reasons Sports Network. How are you doing tonight, Digital Adel?
Hey, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me, Amir. I appreciate you having me back on the Team to Beat Heat. And, it was one of those things where it's an expected outcome, but we're just glad it happened because, man, the outcry from the fan base would have been just unbearable if they would have lost this game. So it's definitely good that they took care of business. And Bam Adebayo got himself back on track. Like you mentioned, to be the player that he is, 32 points, 14 rebounds. Jaime playing in front of the Mexico crowd. That was, really exciting to see. Him getting to do that and to be in Mexico, being of Mexican descent. And then Alex Burks, man, shot the cover off the ball, 71.4% today from 3, man. So he was outstanding. I enjoyed the young guys for the Washington Wizards too. So I'm just happy to be here. And again, appreciate you having me on and talking some Miami Heat.
Yeah, totally. This was a much needed bounce back type of game for the Miami Heat after they lost to the Knicks. And they didn't have a third quarter for the first time. And even though it's the Wizards, they still have had a third quarter every single game, even against the Hornets, even against the Pistons in those victories. And they have been not only the worst third quarter team prior to this game being outscored by 43 points, but also having the worst starting 5 in basketball in this early season. It's only 4 games, of course, so it's hard to judge a team this early. To your point, Burke shot 71% from 3. He's shooting in his limited minutes, and he's only played, 2 out of the 4 games, 75% from 3. So he is the greatest three-point shooter in the history of the league. So it's too early to judge. Bam Adebayo had 40 points combined or 45 points combined in the first 4 games, had 32 points, like you mentioned. So let's start off with Bam. What are your thoughts on Bam? Will Bam play this aggressive and get this much usage, in your opinion? Because the biggest thing with Jimmy and Bam early on in the 2 losses against playoff teams was Jimmy and Bam didn't show up, but their usage has been down. And we've been trying to highlight the 5-out motion offense. We've been trying to highlight Terry and Tyler. They've had the ball in their hands. They've taken the most shots throughout the first 4 games. And so the usage was up. And I think Jimmy and Bam were in the teens. Last season, I think Bam was at a 25.5% usage rate per game. Jimmy was at 23 or 24, which is down from his earlier years with the Heat. But that's natural. He's, 35 years old. But seeing Bam go from a usage rate of 25, 26 from last year to 16, 17, that's also been an issue that a lot of folks have not necessarily talked about. I know Terry Rozier mentioned something a few games ago that we need to get him in more actions. He needs the ball more in his hands. He's been playing with the ball out of his hands and playing kind of like that Draymond Green kind of role. So it was good to see Bam early on in the beginning of the game in the first quarter, attempting multiple shots and hitting threes finally. So he was 3 for 5 from 3, which was huge. He finally hit some 3-pointers and he looked confident tonight. So thoughts on Bam Adebayo, and can he carry this on? I think moving forward against, the Kings, and then we have a huge, 6-game road trip coming up after this.
Yeah, so Bam was outstanding tonight. Not just the scoring and hitting threes, but he hit his free throws. He was 5 for 6, 83% from the field, and he hit the glass. Sarr's a big guy, man. He's a 7-footer. He's got good feet, sturdy, athletic, but he had 14 points or 14 rebounds, rather. 5 of those were on the offensive glass. And there were several times he just dunked right over the top of Sarr, like right on his head. And so that type of aggressiveness you definitely want to see. I mean, 18% usage for Bam Adebayo, which is behind Nico. Can't have that. Can't have that. I've been very disappointed with Nico, to be honest with you. I think Nico is actually has not taken a step forward from last year. He's regressed a little bit, in my opinion. It's a small sample size. It's only 4 games, but I haven't liked Nico's physicality. I don't think he's been strong enough. I don't think he's playmaked enough with the ball. So, for Bam to have that kind of usage lower than Nico has to change going forward. So, this was a great first step into doing that, and I think it will change moving forward. So, I do think we're going to be able to see a more aggressive Bam on a more consistent basis.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Jimmy too? So I know Jimmy was able to coast a little bit, which I think is like an okay formula if the rest of the Miami Heat can take care of business against the bottom feeders of the NBA. I know the Wizards were 2-2 going into tonight, but still, they're a rebuilding team. They had 3 rookies in their starting lineup tonight. So they're very young. Their oldest player, I think, now is Jordan Poole at age 25. So they're going to probably be like a 20-win team. So Jimmy, slow start, just didn't take too many shots at the beginning because Bam was getting that usage. Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier were cooking early on. Both played relatively really well. Tyler played only 20 minutes tonight, which is nice. But in those 20 minutes, he was super efficient, 5 for 9 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. So Tyler had a good game. Terry had a pretty good game until the second half. He put up some threes that he missed. He was 3 for 7 from 3, 4 for 13 from the field, which is not great. But Jimmy ended up with 18, 8, and 4, efficient game, 6 for 13, 6 for 8 from the field. So, what are your thoughts on Jimmy's play tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated because the 5-out philosophy that they're running is important for Jimmy so that he can stay healthy and fresh throughout the season. That's what's going to allow him to be able to just coast, as you said, and still impact the game. Because whenever you stretch the paint and he can isolate on smaller players, like Bilal Coulibaly is an excellent second-year player. Dynamite offensively, very good defensive player. He's not physically strong enough to handle Jimmy Butler. And you saw that a lot. Whenever Jimmy did decide to drive or did decide to go to the hoop, Coulibaly wasn't strong enough. Jordan Poole definitely isn't strong enough. And Keshawn George isn't strong enough. So whenever Terry's going, Tyler's going, Bam is stretching the floor, whenever that's happening, it allows Jimmy to operate in that mid post and low post and to get easy baskets against mismatches. And that's what he did tonight. So I was fine with what Jimmy did tonight.
Do you see him though, like picking up his play on Monday against the Kings? So biggest issue, home court. Like haven't been a premier home court team. What are we 1-2 this season at home? So we're playing Monday before we go on a road trip. So we need to take care of business at home, but we're playing against a playoff team. And in general, I forgot what Barry Jackson reported, like that the Heat's record against playoff teams dating back to last year. It's been bad, below 500. But more importantly, last year, Jimmy Butler's performances against the top 4 in the East, top 4 in the West was like 2-15 or whatever it was last season against the top 4 in both conferences. So can Jimmy take this momentum? Again, if it was a better team, I'm sure his usage would have been up, but he still is an efficient night. That's all you can ask for Jimmy. Played well enough, but can he carry this over against the playoff teams? Like, what's with that stigma, do you think? Like, I don't understand why he's not like showing up, like especially against the Knicks. Wasn't aggressive, seemed pretty passive, and it was a national game. And these are the moments where we need Jimmy to play well. And while Bam hasn't been aggressive and been out of his element, you would assume that Jimmy, who's still theoretically the Miami Heat's best player, even though I think Bam is the most important player all around, has not showed up against playoff teams yet. So far this season, small sample size, 3 shitty teams, Jimmy has played well enough, especially against Charlotte and Detroit, had 26, 24, whatever points. But can he carry that over, you think, and actually show up on Monday? And the Kings aren't like a dominant team in the West, but they're still a playoff contending team. So what are your thoughts on that and that carryover?
So when we talk about the Knicks game, again, it depends on what we're talking about in terms of philosophy of the offense. They didn't shoot particularly well against the Knicks, the guards, right?
Yeah.
So whenever that happens, the Knicks pack the paint. That's a defensive principle of Thibodeau. Always protect the paint and then work your way out. And if you're not hitting threes, there's no reason for them to do that. That's why I think Jimmy struggled. Because again, in the regular season, Jimmy's not going to go full bore and be all-star Jimmy or playoff Jimmy or whatever you want to say about his level of play that he raises to. So it's going to depend on the guards. So if Terry's having a good night, Tyler's having a good night, Bam can stretch the floor a little bit, then yeah, I think Jimmy's going to have an efficient night. Because De'Aaron Fox can't guard Jimmy down low. Keegan Murray can't really guard Jimmy. He's too physical for those guys.
DeMar probably can't even guard him.
No. DeMar DeRozan's, I mean, he's physical now in his older age. Like in the past, 7 years, DeMar's put on quite a bit of muscle, but I don't even think he's going to be able to handle Jimmy down low. So it just depends on if it's Jimmy one-on-one because they can stretch the floor. If they can't do that, then he's not going to be as impactful. But he is your franchise player. We say all these things, and like you said, he still ended up with a nice night, 18 points. You know, the rebounds, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. And 6 of those rebounds were on the offensive glass. So he's still a very impactful player, even at this age, even at what we like to say is him coasting. It just depends on how easy it's going to be, how open that lane is going to be. What I think is very important and was very interesting in this game is how well Alex Burks has played this whole season. So I'm all in for Alec Burks getting Drew's minutes. I'm all in on Pelle Larsson as long as Duncan isn't right. And Duncan was excused from this game for personal reasons. That's why Pelle Larsson had a role. But man, he just is a good glue guy and connector, makes the right plays. One possession in particular I remember where he pump faked, got his man up in the air, penetrated, kicked to a wide open Alec Burks for a wide open triple. He's just a smart, tough basketball player on both ends of the floor. So those are some things to look forward to more than Jimmy. I think in this regular season, it's not all about Jimmy. I think it's going to be all about the collective, that 10-man rotation is supposed playing. For them to be effective?
Yeah, what do you think about Duncan Robinson though? Because he's been off and has been struggling. He's shooting 22% from 3. Again,
right?
It's only 4 games, but when we saw Pele come in there, he's coming in with energy, and he's playing within his role essentially. He's not trying to force anything, and he's a good spot up shooter. He hit a 3, which was great, and he's not a bad dribble penetration type of guy. He got to the hole, like you said, and found Alec Burks. Not a bad playmaker. So, do you see now that Jay Rich is back and he came in super rusty, hasn't played in 8 months or whatever it is since he got injured against the Celtics in the regular season last season.
Right.
0 for 4, 0 for 2. But he still played 16 minutes, third most off the bench behind Hawkes and Burks. So do you see now that since Duncan's struggling, that his minutes are going to be, and you mentioned Drew's minutes, and Drew only played 2 minutes today. Do you think those 2 minutes or those 2 guys' minutes are going to be distributed more towards Jay Rich, Burks, and Pele moving forward?
I don't think Burks' minutes have anything to do with Duncan's or that. I think Burks' minutes are really that backup facilitator role. So he's going to come in where Drew Smith would be. I think the Highsmith, Richardson, Duncan, Pele role is the one to keep an eye on. Duncan, I don't know what's going on with Duncan. He was excused for personal reasons, so I don't know what it is. At first, I was kind of worried if his back is still bothering him, but he also just doesn't look like he has very much energy when he's playing. He's not playing with very much passion and force. So I'm not really sure what the issue is. So there might be something really personal going on there. So we're gonna have to wait and see. I know in the 5 Reasons Sports Discord, earlier today, I called Pele Larson playing today because he fits that role that Duncan plays. And when someone's out, Spo likes to replace the role. Not so much which player, but who can fill this specific role. And Pele being that glue guy, that connector, really physical defender, but it can also knock down threes. That's why I thought Pele was going to play today, and then he did. So it's going to be interesting going forward. There's no telling how it's going to play out because there's so many unknown variables.
Yeah. And you're getting the 3-point shots and attempts from now Rozier and Tyler, who are shooting exponentially more than they were last season. You got Bam finally making those threes. You have Jimmy obviously shooting a little bit, even though he hasn't been great this season. You have Thomas Bryant obviously still shooting some threes. Only took one tonight. But
Thank
like,
God for that.
right. But like, you would think that they would be missing out with Duncan and his 3-point attempts, but like, he's not making them. So like, if you get
Right.
Burks, who's making them off the bench, if Jaime, who's 0 for 3 tonight, but has been better a little, Jaime was shooting 66% in this small sample size. But if you can get some from Jaime, some from Burks, some from Pele, then you're not missing out with Duncan, especially when he's only shooting 22%. So last thing before we close, Highsmith. He played 2 minutes, but I was like, it's so weird with Haywood when he's not playing. Like you don't realize it sometimes because of the depth right now, and we're not injured for the first time in forever. And I'm shocked that no one's been hurt even in this small sample size. But with Love and Duncan out for personal reasons, like of course there's still reasons why. A few reasons why, not 5 reasons, but a few reasons why we still have people missing. But it's personal reasons, not injuries, which is good. But Highsmith was out, and I didn't realize it until the third quarter. Like when it was like the end of the third quarter, I'm like, Haywood hasn't played yet. So I don't know what is up with that. Like especially like I guess we didn't need him defensively tonight because the Wizards are horrible. But like,
Right.
why do you think he's been out? And do you think this is going to be like kind of a continued theme with Spo as he's tinkering with so many different pieces in the rotation? Like, is it going to be based on matchup? Like, was it because of matchup tonight? Like, why is he like been in and out of the lineup in your opinion?
Well, it's definitely going to be matchup dependent until Spo gets something he's comfortable with. Nobody's playing to a level where he has to keep them in the lineup.
Maybe Burks.
Like Alex Burks is definitely making himself a case, but also Pella Larson didn't look out of place. The game didn't look too fast for him, and he played really, really well. So that's why he filled that Duncan role, and Highsmith didn't get in the game. But at the same time, I mean, Highsmith is a good point of attack defender.
The
This
best,
team,
probably.
this team though that they were playing against, they're good offensively, so the Heat needed more offense, and so that's why he leaned in with the offensive players.
And there's no one to worry about. You're not going to worry about Jordan Poole like
I
breaking
mean,
down defenders and getting
they're
to the rack.
professionals and they're good players. A coach could have the defensive philosophy that we're going to defend these guys. They're good enough offensively. They're going to score their points no matter what. Especially being the second fastest team in pace in the NBA, they're going to score points. So he leaned into offense more than he did to defense tonight. And it paid off. He was right.
Yeah. And the last piece was, hey, Khalil Ware made an appearance, got his first NBA bucket tonight. Were you surprised that he didn't play at all, like when they were up by a lot, like especially in the third and fourth? I'm actually still a little surprised that Thomas Bryant got 14 minutes versus like 10 minutes and, give Khalil like 6 or 8 minutes, like especially towards the end. I know the Wizards went on like a little run ish in the fourth quarter. They started off like 18-12 against the Heat early on in the first 5 minutes of that fourth quarter. But were you surprised? Like, obviously, I know he's raw. I'm not in that camp of like play him like he needs to play, blah 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 blah. Because I know Thomas Bryant still theoretically is an NBA player, has more experience, and experience goes a long way, right? Like versus guys who are 20 years old and
Right.
and rookies in the NBA. Like obviously he has more upside, but he's still raw. So like I'm still shocked that like Spo can't find time for him just to throw him in the fire, like especially when you're like against the Wizards and up like up more than double digits. I mean, you're up 20 points. Were you surprised he didn't get any run at all? And then we'll close out after this.
Uh, I don't know if I'm saying I'm surprised per se, because Ware is, like you said, super raw and he's not ready. His minutes, those 2 minutes he got, were an adventure. He had a couple of air balls. He had some terrible screens that he set. He almost turned the ball over, but kept it and scored. So I understand why Spo's not playing him. Thomas Bryant, he's a rough watch, man. I mean, he had 9 rebounds, but he doesn't give you any deterrent down low. He's not going to really defend on the perimeter very well. He doesn't give you any offense. There were so many lobs that people tried to throw to him that ended up in turnovers.
Yeah, the one Pele tried to throw
Ugh.
to him, or was it the Pele or Jaime that tried to throw him one?
Pele threw one, I believe. Jaime threw one. Terry might have threw one. I think there were 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not pretty. But Ware's definitely just not ready at the same time. So I get it. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place if you're Spo, and he's doing everything he can to win. So no, I'm not surprised by it.
I'm not either, honestly. I was just hoping give him like 8 minutes at this point, especially when Kevin Love is not there, right? So it's like when Kevin Love comes back in, like there's no
No
opportunity,
chance. Yeah, no chance. Yep.
no chance, because Jimmy and Kevin Love play well together, and Kevin still, even at this age, can still hit a three at a decent clip,
He'll
NBA
take
average.
charges.
He'll take charges. He'll get the He used to average 7 rebounds in 12 minutes last year. Like if he can play 10 minutes, get you 5 boards, hit a three, get a couple, full court passes to Jimmy Butler, get him going, because they have good chemistry. Then he's going to come in and he's going to soak up those Bryant minutes, like so those
Yep.
14, 18 minutes that Bryant had been getting. Like hopefully, 10 or 12 of those are going to go to Kevin Love, and then only 4 minutes, 6 minutes will go to Thomas Bryant.
Right.
And we'll see. And that maybe helps with our rebounding. We won the rebounding battle tonight. Thank God. We scored a respectable number for the first time ever, but against the Wizards, 114, our highest points total. Finally, we've been averaging 105, which was 29th in the NBA. So need to clean up rebounding, need to clean up points. We did that tonight technically, but show me that in a long matter. Like I don't want to see it just against the Wizards in one time. Like we've lost the rebounding battle like every night by an average of 8 points. So in order to have success against the Kings, we need to rebound and we need to play defense, but more importantly, we need to be efficient. We need to score. So, what's your prediction for the game against the Kings?
My prediction for this game against the Kings. I don't know. I think the Miami Heat end up losing that game with De'Aaron Fox closing it out with a couple of tough buckets down the stretch. I don't have an idea what the score may be, but that's what I see happening in that game.
They're gonna be tough, especially with DeMar in there in the mix. They're obviously a good team. I think Malik Monk just got back, so
Heat killer Malik Monk.
Yeah, you're gonna get mad when I say this because I'm gonna consider him. I'm gonna put him in the category of a random Heat scrub killer, even though he's not a scrub.
He's not a scrub.
We have different definitions, but if you're a role player, in my opinion, you're a freaking scrub. So if you're not a star or an all star or a superstar, you're a scrub. So because you're inconsistent.
I don't co-sign that at all. That's all Amir, man. That's all Amir.
I just call role players scrubs because one night you'll have 20 like Burks can or whatever, and then you'll have 2 the next game. So it's like he's a role player. So, but yeah, he's not a random scrub Heat killer, but he's a random.
He's a Heat killer. Monk is a Heat killer, dude.
Yeah, he's a Heat role player killer, not a scrub.
There you go. There you go.
I'll change that. He's not Corey Kispert. Well, actually, like even though he didn't play good tonight, Corey Kispert usually kills the Miami Heat when he plays the Miami Heat. I think he averaged like 23 points per game last season against the Heat across 4 games. So he would be considered a scrub Heat killer because half of NBA fans and casuals don't even know who the hell Corey Kispert is. So, and those are usually the guys who dominate the Miami Heat on any given night. But anyway, Digital Adel, thank you so much for hopping on the post game show. I guess my small fan base of 1,800 people, like you apparently in the comments, they've mentioned that we have good chemistry. So we're just 2 Western PA boys.
There it is.
Who are Miami Heat fans. They got some Middle Eastern descent. So I guess we have that common bond. But yeah, it was fun having you on, and happy the Miami Heat are number one in their division at this point because
Hey,
luckily Paolo is hurt, and I don't
right.
want to see that or say that, but that's huge for the Miami Heat because he might be out for the next month or two, and that's good for the Miami Heat because we're number one in our division, which is insane to think of, even though it's only been 5 games. But anyway, thank you so much again. Before we hop off, want to let the audience know where they can find your work.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm humbled that your audience thinks that. So I definitely appreciate everybody out there and appreciate you having me on. You can find me at Digital Adel on all social media platforms. Follow our podcast, the Hoops Profile Beyond the Backboard podcast, anywhere podcasts are found. And basketball breakdowns, which is my main thing, is college to NBA prospects at Hoops Profile on YouTube. Latest breakdown is on Jalil Bethea from the University of Miami. Go check that out on YouTube.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
You're welcome. Thank you. See you.